All right, everyone. It was hilarious how if you looked at the presser that was put out by the CEO of YouTube the other day, you got like two totally different crowds of people. Those that looked at it and said, well, basically the CEO is saying people can get away with posting offensive things and that's horrible, and Vox pissed its pants and stuff. And then there were people like me who looked at it and said, well, this is, it's the same as all the other pressers that have been put out for years now. YouTube has been getting, by most accounts, steadily more censored. We literally just saw the loss of half a dozen or so significant political accounts over the last week. Medicare got several strikes. He put everything to private. He said, fuck it. Now apparently he's just going to be a BitChute uploader. He should, by the way, to Medicare, he should get a Daily Motion too. Ram that shit through just for the dumpster fire effect and how funny it would be. That might be worth his time. And then Sellner got, banned, Iconoclast, James Alsop, and so forth. Some of it was due to ADL, haranguing, defamation, their usual raid-happy attacks. It's funny because these sites get a seat at the table for YouTube. What they should do is ban them for harassing the other users. Wouldn't it, if a private individual acted in the way that some of these groups like the SPLC did, they would literally be banned from a lot of these social media sites, specifically because it would be deemed harassment. It would be deemed attempts to call up raiding. And to harass other users. In fact, private individuals who have done things sort of like that, they get their material struck down. They make a video and they're like, well, here's exposing this user for their extremism or whatever, and they get banned under the harassment guidelines. It's funny. Vox, they weigh in. And they started wanting and saying, well, basically this is YouTube saying that people can post content on the site that's offensive. And of course, Vox can't tell you what specifically should be deemed offensive, because it's an arbitrary definition. What offends them is different from what offends you, and what offends you is different from what I'm offended by, and so on through. I think that it's offensive when people suggest that billion-dollar corporations should tell me what I can read or what I can see and hear. But I don't think that people should be banned for encouraging that. I think they should just be mocked squarely. That's the other thing. This YouTube presser literally refers to part of their other policy that I think they talked about last month on their new retooling of the harassment policy. And they're like, we're always looking for ways to make things more clear. But YouTube didn't do that. What Vox did is Vox actually just did what usually a lot of Vox readers do, which is it looked at the headline, it looked at the summary for a sentence or two, and then extrapolated the whole meaning. But if you actually look through one of the main 4R sections of the YouTube policy, and this has been a long-standing thing, is they say, we're going to promote authoritative voices and then sort of suppress everyone else. But what that literally means is that somebody like me who analyzes the news appears behind some news analysis that appears on CNN or Fox. It's really funny, by the way, when this is applauded by the left, they don't seem to realize Fox News and some of these other groups on the right are part of that trusted news circle. You realize that, right? That they have a seat at the table too. What differentiates them? They're corporations. The fucking Fox News is no different from CNN, a bunch of billionaires and shit. A bunch of rich people lying and excusing government overreach and abuse and authoritarianism and censorship. They don't want to have to compete with private individuals. That's what it's all fucking about. They don't want to have to compete with someone who says fuck. Because they can't say that on regular cable and stuff. Their shit's all tied to cable and radio where they're severely limited in what they can say. I'm not on cable and radio. I can say fuck. I can say anal sex. I can talk dirty and say cool shit like that, and it'll be funny. They can't do that, so they're at a loss to compete. And really, what they've done is pretend that the reason why they're coming from behind is because of extremism. No, it's really just because of the coolness factor of being able to interact with the individuals you're getting that analysis from. The fact that people aren't stuck in a genre. Like, you turn on Fox, you're getting analysis and current event sort of opinion and stuff. You tune into my channel, it could be a garden update you're getting, or maybe I'm talking about a book that's 500 years old. You don't know that it's going to be news. And that's the case for a lot of YouTubers. But it's very, very funny how triggered Vox was. And then they got their shit shoved in the comment section. Here's the thing. It was like with that study I talked about the other day that uses Vox literally as part of its so-called moderate control group, which is bullshit. It's very funny because they're shitting their pants and stuff like that. They totally misrepresented what the article meant in the first place. Here's the problem. Vox and groups like that, they have large overall audiences, but they're not engaged. Whereas people, some random YouTuber, maybe their audience is smaller overall, but they're much more engaged. That's why they get more comments, more likes and shares. Here, by the way, we see YouTube is openly alluding to the fact Despite what Susan, the CEO, says about wanting to promote diverse voices and sometimes you just have to deal with offensive content. Oh, that's all well and good. But that's corporate PR bullshit. That's not what YouTube is doing on the ground. Physically, YouTube has been banning people for being even slightly edgy. People are getting banned in some cases who don't even talk about politics. It's not a political fight, it's a money fight. It's about advertisers and the legacy media and corporate propaganda and lame establishment political movements, and that's really what it's about. Here's the thing, though. YouTube has consistently been promoting the competitors of the independent media. There's an easy solution. I've been talking about it for years. All of a sudden, all of these people you get this rude awakening and say, oh my goodness, maybe we need an alternative, maybe we need new strategies and stuff. Look, I've always taken up the line. I'm not going to flee YouTube and say, well, YouTube is more censored now, so fuck it, I get blackpilled and leave. That's never going to happen. I'll keep making content on this platform so long as it's possible to do so. That being said, you'd be a fool not to branch out. And people are being fools and not organizing more against the algorithmic suppression of our material. We're being suppressed primarily because priority creators take precedence in every genre of material. That means Will Smith and Katy Perry and CNN are ahead of you inevitably, regardless of what you do. If you're making funny stuff, Jimmy Kimmel is before you in the results for that funny stuff. Current events, Fox and CNN and these other morons are ahead of you. If you're making any form of content, if there aren't any lamestream like cable and radio and old school 80s and 90s celebs to represent it, to be priority creators, they'll handpick some very, very innocuous, boring, bland bullshit from YouTube itself, or from some e-celeb who got started else, or some Instagram model or whatever, and they'll put them before you. What we need to do then, as independent creators, who are truly independent, is share one another's material out more. Whenever you pin a comment by another creator, whenever you mention them, whenever you link them in your description, or you talk about them in a podcast or whatever, it promotes other people's independent material. If we pull together and begin doing that, at the very least, a very large core audience sharing goes on. We all benefit. We become sort of like a syndicate. Nothing on paper, it's just a bunch of people informally working together to promote one another's material. It's a much bigger solution than the idea of a YouTubers union or some stupid shit like that. I want some German company that represents metal workers to represent me to YouTube. I'm sure they'll do a very good job of making sure that my particular voice, my channel being banned in Germany, will be heard. I'm sure that will happen. I'm sure, absolutely. Total faith in that. No, I don't. I have faith in myself. That's why I've succeeded. And I saw all this shit happening almost half a decade ago. I started making my overtures as much as 5 years ago as far as branching out into new material. A lot of people didn't do that, and all of a sudden they're worried about being erased from the face of the internet. Yes, you should be worried. Even if this censorship bullshit long-term will go away like in every other moral panic of every paradigm, which is what's happening. They're scared of the power of millennials, and they're scared of us teaching Gen Z that it's funny to be edgy. Just because of that doesn't mean short-term there's not going to be a whole lot more chaos. Of course, the problem will get worse before it gets better. Yes, you should use BitChute. Link in the description, by the way, to mine, among others. I am now the second person in the world to hit 60,000 subscribers there. Medicare just joined them and said, fuck it, for YouTube. They've lost another major creator. Ramsey Paul has decided to basically shelve his material on YouTube. He's moving there. It's funny because, as far as I know, no one ever branded Medicare a white supremacist. It's very funny because they're like, well, it's okay for these private sites to kick these Nazis off. Well, most of the people leaving or getting kicked off, more leaving now than anything else, are not Nazis. Not by any stretch. Some of these people don't give a fuck about politics. I think Medicare just wants to watch the world burn. Sellner's no Nazi. It's very, very funny to see this happening. It's funny, the people who support such bans, I've noticed, the people who like this censorship, almost always their idea of who's being censored and in what form and shit, they don't know anything about the actual people or events at all other than what they read in the headlines. Like, when I defended Hassan Piker, he's a Young Turks, he's, far left, he's like a Bernie Sanders socialist, I think. I defended him based on the fact he'd been banned on Twitch, and I was sparring with people over this. And it was clear that they didn't know anything about Hassan Piker, probably never heard his name before all these news articles talking about him being banned, they were judging whether he should be banned or not, and in large part applauding the fact that he had been, based on headlines saying that he said unconscionable things about 9/11. But they don't know anything about him, and they never went to his podcast or his Twitch stream or anything and encountered that material firsthand. They were never on his Twitch to hear it and be offended. They only feel offended because the news wrote about it. Because the legacy media spewed out propaganda about what he had said and why it's important to have decency and stupid shit like that. It's not important to be decent. No, it's not important to not offend people. Fuck, offending people's funny. That's what comedy's all about. Name a good comic who doesn't offend people. You can't. It's all dad jokes and puns. Yeah, the one good one you had, Bill Cosby, what was he getting up to? Yeah, no, edgy, offensive people are the best people. Being edgy and offensive is a good thing. Because the people that get offended the most easily, usually they deserve it. They deserve to be offended. They deserve to be, they deserve to be constantly bothered because they're so weak-minded. Because it's so funny to watch them shit their pants. The people at Vox, BuzzFeed's audience, all these other fucking morons. It's funny. If YouTube won't facilitate making fun of them, YouTube will end up losing users. It's sort of the way it's going. For Vox to come out and whine because YouTube alludes to the idea of having offensive material on the site, my goodness, YouTube has steadily become more and more censored for almost half a decade now. They can't become more censored without crippling the site's own functions. It's impossible. They're like, oh, we took a principled stand on like children's issues. Yes, and YouTube's solution was to ban commenting on a bunch of videos, including people who are adults who then have no appeals process to even reverse the decision. It's hilarious. So it's a good thing that I don't look like I'm under 18, I guess. Otherwise, I wouldn't have comments open. And there'd be no way to get it reversed. I'm still hoping that Team YouTube will get back to me. I have to keep pinging them on Twitter. I told them, you know, it's kind of funny, my channel's not available in Germany, France, sometimes Poland and Italy and other countries. And I was told by Team YouTube they'd look into it and get back to me, and 2 weeks later they haven't gotten back to me. I tried reminding them the other day, I don't think they responded. So yeah, people should talk to at Team YouTube on Twitter, get them involved, because, you know, for the last decade, Germans haven't been able to subscribe to me if they're on like a German connection. The only way around it is to change, you know, the sub-site that they're using to like regular, you know, away from the German YouTube. Like they have to plug in a different country. I guess with Brave browser, it takes care of the problem. It routes it all through the US or something like that. Then that comes with its own problems. It's like when I was in Europe, you know, not even in like Germany, but in the Netherlands, when I was there, you can't access certain US news sites because of Article 13. The world's going to hell because of censorship. Fuck censorship. And fuck people who support it. That's about all. Peace out.